Our objective is to reduce federal spending. As conservatives in the House, that is a top priority of ours because we're haunted by the federal debt. It's $33.6 trillion now, Maria. You address this all the time on your show. We have to keep that in mind always. We want to decrease the woke and weaponized federal government and its apparatuses and reduce federal spending.
The U.S. House passing a $1.2 trillion spending deal to keep the federal government funded for the next 6 months. It was a 286 to 134 vote.
There's an old saying, nothing good happens after 2 a.m. Well, this morning at 2:23, Congress released a monster 1,012-page bill with a $1 trillion price tag. They're rushing to pass the bill before you have a chance to read it. Why? Well, because it's full of pork. And we've been digging through it, and here's what you're paying for. Liz Warren is spending $850,000 on a gay senior citizen home in Boston. Florida has the villages, Massachusetts has the village people. We're spending $15 million to pay for Egyptians' college tuition. Egyptian tuition, not Egyptians who live in America, Egyptians in Egypt. Egyptian tuition. So we pay for illegals to go to college here, and now we're paying for the tuition before I guess they even cross the border. Speaking of Egypt, Gold Bar Bob's sending $400,000 to a gay activist group that teaches elementary school kids about being trans. Not enough to keep you out of jail, Gold Bar. Sorry. Another $400,000 goes to a group that gives clothes to teens that help them hide their gender, like chest binders and tuckums. Parental permission not required. Even Dianne Feinstein, who unfortunately passed away long before the bill was written, has an earmark from the grave. $500,000 for a DEI zoo. The San Diego Zoo's getting $500,000 for an anti-racist nature appreciation program where high school kids from diverse backgrounds can observe wildlife. Why do they need $500,000 to go to the zoo? Tickets are like $15. That should be enough for every congressman, especially the Republicans, to vote no. But this massive bill will probably be on Biden's desk this weekend, and he'll just sign your money away. Poof.
Representative Marjorie Taylor Greene, who has officially filed a motion to vacate the speaker. There's a one-member motion to vacate that would seek to oust current House Speaker Mike Johnson.
Congresswoman, you've taken a very serious step here to change perhaps the course of your conference and the House of Representatives. What seems to be going on?
Well, this is a complete betrayal of Republican voters across the country. I entered the motion to vacate this morning after Mike Johnson brought part 2 of an omnibus to the bill to the House floor this morning and forced all of us to vote on a bill that would fund abortion up until full term, that doesn't do anything to secure our border. And this comes after people are seeing this video that's horrifying to every single American, where there's a large group of military-age men, illegals, rushing the border, running over Border Patrol, running over the National Guard. Speaker Johnson totally gave up every ounce of authority he had as House Speaker to use this funding of the government to secure the border for the American people, and it is way past time. He also violated the 72-hour rule. He forced all of us to vote on a bill without amendments. We had no choice. We couldn't introduce amendments. We couldn't fight for the values of our districts. And we had to vote on a bill in one day that had 1,012 pages. These are breaking our conference rules. This is not what Republicans want from a Republican Speaker of the House. And he's basically handed over control to Chuck Schumer.
Wednesday morning, we knew that the 72-hour rule would be violated. We didn't have text yet, 48 hours out. And it was clear, though, that a majority of Republicans were willing to vote for the bill today, irrespective of what was in it, not knowing what the spending levels were, not knowing exactly how much it was increasing spending over the Pelosi-Schumer levels that are still in place today from the omnibus that was passed in December of 22, not knowing the exact spending levels, not knowing how harmful the policies might be beyond the ones that the American people are already suffering under that are still in place from that omnibus. And they didn't need, I think one member said he'd vote for it if it was 72 minutes instead of 72 hours. You know, we don't need 72 hours to vote against a bad bill, but you would think if you're planning to vote for it, you might want to actually know what policies you will own by the virtue of your yes vote on that bill. Is there anything that some Republicans won't do to keep this government open? Why are we in a rush to keep this government open that is so harming the American people by the very policies which they are suffering under? But the bill, hey, one positive, I guess, it'll have thousands of earmarks for billions of dollars, earmarks which are used to buy or reward bad votes for bad votes for bad bills, like the bill that will pass today, it does seem. This bill, again, maintains the Pelosi-Schumer policies and spending levels. Actually, it increases the spending levels by about $60 billion that were in place from the omnibus that we all voted against a year and a half ago. But it has some new things that we want to point out here. It's got $1 billion for the climate focus of the military. How absurd is that? Think about what we might be able to do with $1 billion for our military Department of Defense to actually focus on lethality, force readiness, effectiveness, so that we might win a conflict that we hope not to have. But instead, the Biden administration is getting another $1 billion for the climate focus of the military, getting $200 million for a new headquarters for this FBI. Why would any Republican vote to give $200 million to this FBI for a new headquarters? It continues to fund the WHO, the tool of communist China that was used to deceive us during the COVID virus situation, and that the WHO that President Trump wisely defunded, that Joe Biden put back in place funding for as soon as he got into office, the WHO that Biden wants to surrender our sovereignty to 60-some days from now, so that in a so-called crisis deemed by the WHO, we would be forced to comply with what the WHO said in whatever they deem to be a health crisis or a climate crisis or a poverty crisis, or so-called gun violence crisis. So we're going to continue to fund the WHO. It's got $32 million for the UN Population Fund, but I misspeak, the UN Abortion Fund, and $3 billion more for the Department of Homeland Insecurity. This DHS under Mayorkas and Biden that continues to perpetrate this invasion on the American people. We have entered a new era when it comes to the border invasion, a new era yesterday. Many of you, I hope, saw the video that we saw, where at first we thought, is this a third world country? Is this a banana republic? When we saw the alien mob rush, the bum rush of border officials to force their way into this country. How have we got to that point today where we are allowing illegal aliens to bum rush border officials and force their way into the country? And yet the Biden administration's response, is it to ramp up efforts to repel the invasion? No, their intention is to prevent Texas from securing their border. They will go to unlimited lengths to prevent Texas from securing their border and keeping their citizens safe. But they don't seem to care about the aliens forcing their way, literally forcing their way into our country, overcoming border personnel.
You know, when I came up here, I thought we had the majority, but it appears that we don't have a majority of fiscally responsible individuals. We're here because just 30 hours ago, the Uniparty put forward a 1,000-page bill that no one can tell me that they've read before they're going to vote yes on it, to spend $1.2 trillion, and we're expected to vote on it in just a couple hours. It's not acceptable. When I first came to Congress, I was warned that this is how this town operates. But I had a glimmer of hope that we had the majority, that we had enough people that were fiscally sane, and that this time it would be different. Unfortunately, it's not different. So here we go again. For the last 3 years, we've been complaining about all of these things. Republicans who campaigned complained about the border issue. And yet, the actions today refuse to do anything about it, to actually do anything about it. You see, we'll pass bills, that ultimately mean nothing because we know that they're not fully going to pass. They're not going to make their way through the Senate, whether it's H.R. 2, impeaching Mayorkas, the new Laken Riley resolution. All of these things ultimately are not going to change anything. And yet today, we're going to use our majority, quote unquote majority, to enact no changes whatsoever. We're going to fund it all. The bottom line is that this is a complete and utter surrender. And I'm going to be not only a no, a hell no on this bill. It completely ignores the fact that we are at a place that we've never been in the history of the United States. At $34 trillion in debt, we're at a greater debt to GDP than we were during World War II. And we didn't just finish a war, folks.